Welcome to her Gypsy Rebel, the podcast for those who crave more creativity, more space, more of your own damn life on your own terms. I am Jacqueline Van Bierk, aka Pink Star, a musician, artist, traveler, and professional rule breaker, bringing you real, unfiltered conversations about reinvention, confidence, and making space for what actually matters. So grab a coffee, a tea, something a little stronger, because this is where the rebellion begins. Well, hello and welcome back to her Gypsy Rebel podcast with your host, Jacqueline Van Bierk. How are you guys doing today? It's been raining in Michigan quite a bit. I feel extremely blessed to be able to be here and have witnessed this gorgeous sight. I mean, besides being in New York, playing a few shows, being on a mini tour, it's been amazing and it's been absolutely magical. And I've witnessed quite a few rainbows this year, as well as some northern lights. So I can attest that magic is real. And I am so excited about today's guest, Penny. Penny is a hypnotherapist, and I've met her through Kathy Heller. And I feel hypnotherapy is just so fascinating to me. Learning more about it and applying it is such a powerful technique that I think that all of us could really benefit from. And, some might think this is crazy. Some might believe in it. Some may not. But I challenge you to give this a listen and judge after you've heard Penny talk about it, and also maybe give yourself a chance to try it out, because why not use the tools we have available to better our lives and our situation, attract more abundance, health, wealth, and just peace of mind in general. So with no further ado, I'm going to get straight into it. Well, hello, Penny. It's such an honor to have you as a guest. You're so special, and I'm so glad we met through Kathy Heller. And I got really curious. I've gotten into hypnotherapy a long time ago. I love your style, and I would love for you to share with us how you ended up in hypnotherapy, because I think that is another bold move for most. So you decided to just take a leap and do this, and you're doing this full time, and you're helping so many people. I would love to hear your story. And by the way, I love the owl behind you. This is so beautiful.
Oh, the owl has a story. So if you want to talk about manifestation later, we can talk about the owl.
Please. Yes.
But, being a hypnotist is not something that you sit around and dream of doing when you're 6, 7 years old, right?
Yeah.
Not even on your radar. And I was pretty unclear what I wanted to do when I was growing up. I loved the idea of fighter jets and becoming a pilot. And then I ended up with glasses, which meant I wouldn't be able to fly. So the military was out. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was kind of lost and floundering, and ended up deciding on nursing. I had 3 aunts who were nurses. So I went to nursing school, and that gave me the opportunity to travel. And I met my husband in New England. One of my bosses, when I was in high school, had a job in high school. I worked at the local hospital. And she said something to me one day about the local anesthetist. She goes, "Oh, she saves $2,000 a month in her savings account." And now in 1989, that was a lot of money.
Yes.
It was a lot of money in 1989. So that had always stuck in the back of my. And I was close to 3 programs. So when my first child entered into school, I had applied and I went to anesthesia school. And I thought that was going to be my career until I retired. I loved it. Love taking care of people, love helping people out of pain. And that is a theme in my story and in my life. And then in 2007, I started putting together a continuing education course for the nurses in the hospital on pain management. There was so much I learned in anesthesia that I didn't know as a nurse that really it made an easy transition into more deeply understanding, helping people be more comfortable without putting them at risk when you're giving them narcotic pain medications. And it was when I was doing that continuing education project that I was looking up what are the alternatives available to patients that actually work other than medication. And I found a mountain of research on hypnosis and pain. And it blew my mind. I thought to myself, why have I never, ever heard of this?
Mm.
So it's something that's stuck in the back of my mind. And several years later, I ended up coming across a training that was offered by a retired nurse anesthetist that would get me credits for my certifying organization. So it was two birds with one stone. I got credits for my organization, and I got to learn about hypnosis from someone who actually knew something about pain and the neuroscience. And in that class, I had a personal experience where the instructor volunteered me to demonstrate something called glove analgesia, which is where through hypnosis and suggestion alone, you create anesthesia of a body part or analgesia. You can get anesthesia with hypnosis. It's totally possible. And he clamped a surgical clamp shut on the back of my hand. And it was snapped shut so tight, it left the marks in my skin for 2 hours, and I didn't feel a thing. And so that was spirit's way of intervening to get my attention. And I left class that day and I told my husband, I know you think I'm crazy, but when I come home, I'm opening a hypnosis practice. And he's like, what the, are you kidding? I said, I'll talk to you about it when I get home. Now, just as a fun side note, to this day, my husband has not let me hypnotize him because I think that he thinks I'm going to give him suggestions to dress up in a French maid uniform and clean the house. But hypnosis does not work like that. Okay. We can talk about that later if you want to. Hypnosis does not work like that. But fast forward, I started seeing clients and something cracked open inside of me. And I knew this is what I was here to do. But I love giving anesthesia too. So it was on the side. I got to have the best of both worlds. Then in 2015, I had to close my practice when we moved to my childhood home in Mississippi. And I didn't practice for a few years. And the healthcare system down here is very different. The healthcare system was changing very rapidly. And I was finding it didn't align with my values anymore. When I trained as a nurse, it was about patient education and empowering patients. And it was about wellness. And then everything had just came down to this patch people up and send them on their way. And so the values were very misaligned. And that misalignment of values was creating a lot of friction inside of me. And I was getting frustrated. And to be downright honest, sometimes I would get angry when I couldn't get what I needed for my patients and their care was being impacted over things that seemed simple to me. But it was like, it's just the way it is, not acceptable to me. And that was resonating off of some unresolved, let's say, anger and grief from around the time my father had died 3 or 4 years earlier. I don't know if anybody listening's ever dealt with the loss of 2 parents in a very short time frame, but life was just busy and I didn't give myself time to grieve. I gratitude and spiritually bypassed it. And so those 2 things came to a head. And I had my own mental emotional crisis. And once, I'll be honest, I was holding everything together. I was very busy, always stayed busy. And then one day I got a phone call and it was just a routine phone call any one of us could have got. My car was supposed to be getting a little bit of a tune-up, to not get into all the details. And someone had sold the part out from under, and we had been waiting for the part to get my car in. I lost my mind. You would have thought I had been possessed by a demon, and I felt like it on the inside. It was awful. And all that pain started coming out. It was like uncorking a champagne bottle. You're not getting all that bubbly back in there.
Wow.
And so through the process of, I became suicidal within about 3.5 hours. I had to reach out to someone and say, I need help right now. I didn't trust myself. But as we dug into what was creating that, it became very clear it was anger. And it was anger around the grief and some things. So I told my counselor, because that was not working. That and the meds weren't cutting it. I said, you know what? My mentor was ABD, all but dissertation, for his PhD in psychotherapy when he went into hypnosis full time. I know he knows how to do this because he's taught me how to do it. Please give me your blessing to do hypnosis for this. We did 4 sessions in 2 weeks. And after the 3rd session, once we got to the part where we processed through the anger and did the forgiveness work, it was like somebody took a staticky TV and you suddenly had a crystal clear picture. And in that moment, I knew how powerful hypnosis was. My life changed drastically. I never realized what an undercurrent of anger I had coming and running in my life. And at that point, I was like, okay, it's time to reopen the practice. And that really shaped everything from that point in the work that I do with people now.
Wow. Isn't that amazing how the universe will always guide us where we need to go? Sometimes that means pain, frustration, or you being in that situation where you almost lost it and you're like, I'm over this. That is so powerful. And also knowing that how powerful hypnosis can be, like within 3 sessions, you were pretty much not completely maybe cured, but you at least were like, okay, this is resolved.
It was resolved. And I think a key thing to say there is, I did not have a lot of related trauma in childhood. This was something that was recent. And yes, there were some old feelings that came up, but this was just something that was acute in nature. And consciously we can know that we shouldn't be angry, but if we don't know subconsciously what created the situation that led to the anger, because that was 4 years after my stepmom had passed away. I don't remember exactly what set it all off. It was just a piling on of a lot of stuff.
If somebody would come to you, they may not even know what the root cause is, right? They might just be, something is off. I don't feel motivated. I don't feel inspired. I don't even know why I'm here. Because I think a lot of people feel that way, but they don't necessarily know what it is. And I love what you said about the health system. And it's becoming more and more obvious. It's becoming more transparent, where people realize, maybe we shouldn't trust doctors, because a lot of people in the health industry, whatever they learned 20 years ago, they still go by that. Things change. We find out more research and studies, and especially on holistic health. But I feel it's still being, frowned upon and not accepted insurance-wise and stuff. And I don't know. I feel it's worth the money, though, even if your health insurance doesn't pay it.
It's a 2-pronged approach on that. One is there's something called evidence-based medicine. Anytime you're introducing something that's not part of the evidence-based medicine, it meets immediate resistance. It's difficult to turn that tide. The other thing is a lot of doctors aren't even taught about hypnosis. Now, hypnosis for pain, that's totally evidence-based, PTSD, but there are other areas that people don't recognize it as such. It's a complex issue, and it's just that complexity is one of the reasons I had to get out.
Let's say I'm completely new to this. What is hypnosis and what isn't?
Well, hypnosis is nothing more than a state of focused attention. And probably one of the biggest misperceptions out there that leads people to believe that hypnosis doesn't work for them is people will say hypnosis is relaxation. When someone enters a hypnotic state, you can become very deeply physically relaxed, but lighter stages of hypnosis do not have that physical relaxation component. It's the deeper stages. And people will also say, oh my God, well, I just can't relax. Hypnosis will never work for me. So that misperception keeps people from tapping into the very thing that might make the biggest difference for them. So anytime you focused your attention, you're driving somewhere and you become super absorbed in what you're doing. It can happen when you're watching a movie and it feels like 10 minutes went by, but it was a 2-hour movie, reading a book. Any of those states are hypnosis. It's that state of focused attention. We have inner absorption into what it is that we're doing. And during that time, our conscious analytical mind is not engaged. We're not in that busy mode. So a lot of people like to think of hypnosis as, oh, it's alpha state or it's theta state. Well, those brainwave states can be associated with the hypnotic state. Most definitively, the beta state is our problem solving state. So when we enter that state of hypnosis, that we move out of problem solving, and truly what we're doing is we're moving more into peace and relaxation, and that's actually where our bodies are meant to live. So I apprentice with the shaman, and he often says, live your life in meditation. And that doesn't mean sitting and oming all day. That means quieting the chatter. And so hypnosis helps us move the things out of the way that create the chatter.
I was going to ask you next, what is the difference between hypnosis and meditation?
Yeah. So meditation, typically, most people meditate for the purpose of observing their thoughts or observing their feelings, or they may have the intent to silence the mind. And people can most definitely go into theta state in meditation. It's part of that transcendental experience. With hypnosis, the intention is simply different. The intention is to rewire the mind. And meditation is more about going to an internal state of peace.
Wow. That's very clarifying, because I almost thought it was kind of the same. Sometimes I have like Joe Dispenza or Cassie. I like guided meditations. I feel that's kind of like a state of hypnosis, but I see what you're saying, where it's a bit more of just letting go and allowing yourself to go. And or with hypnosis, let's say I'm going to come to you and say, you know what, I can't focus. I need to find my focus because I'm so scattered. I feel like the past few days I've actually been like that. I'm just like, wow, everything is falling. I'm tripping. I'm like, stop. Why is everything so, slow down,
Slow down.
And it's funny because my mom is like that, and it drives me crazy. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing the same thing. I don't want to do that.
So I can give you an example if you want.
Yes.
Like the difference between, for example, Joe Dispenza. So I know that with those guided meditations, there's a lot of visualization where there might be suggesting, seeing your body, you're whole, you're moving freely, you're comfortable. I've never read any of his meditations, so I'm just kind of riffing an example. But in hypnosis, let's take someone who might have experienced physical pain. I might say something and, take them through a process where I actually instruct them to turn the pain up so that they know their mind can amplify that signal. And then I'll give them instructions to turn it back down, and then they can turn it even lower if they want. And depending on what they achieve and what they've done in their paperwork, I might later say, now that you know you have your remote control and you can turn down what you're feeling so you're more comfortable, I wonder if you would choose to be 30% more comfortable, or would you rather go forward feeling 75% more comfortable? So I'm giving the mind a choice to make an actual decision for a different perception and a different reality. That doesn't mean that meditation can't create some of those changes as well, because what you need to do is create a state where the mind is open to change. And if it's ready for that change, it will choose that change.
For someone to come in to a session with you, they would have to be open to it. I hear people sometimes saying in the class that we were in, for example, I couldn't concentrate, or I couldn't visualize it. I couldn't see it. And I know my mom, for example, she was afraid of meditating even. She's like, oh, I don't want to meditate. I heard people can die from that. I'm like, where did you hear that? It's just like so weird. There's a lot of fear around that, because I think a lot of people are control freaks. They like to be in control, and they think that hypnosis, they lose that control. And maybe that's why your husband is like, don't do that to me.
It's even with church as well. So there's someone that I worked with giving anesthesia. And when I mentioned I was opening a hypnosis practice to start building so I could leave anesthesia, she just kind of got a little weird. And pastor says that hypnosis is of the devil. I said, do you pray? And she goes, yes. I said, do you find that you get really absorbed in your prayer? She goes, yes. I said, you're in a hypnotic state, but you're praying to God. I said, when you're doing hypnosis, it's not the hypnosis that's the problem. It's what you're doing with the hypnosis. It's like Jesus drank wine, but Jesus didn't get drunk on wine.
Yeah.
But I don't worry about convincing people one way or the other about those things, but I will take the opportunity to share with people. But what you've experienced in the group is that people come in with all types of preconceived notions about hypnosis. They have their own personal history. They may have something in their own personal history that there is this deeply ingrained protective mechanism of control that has nothing to do with the hypnosis. So while a group hypnosis might not be a place where they feel safe to allow themselves to be guided, in a one-on-one session where there is that attention, there aren't other people around, we can navigate that. I mean, I've had some people who were really big into control, and all it means is that I have to navigate so that they feel safe and so that they feel safe feeling their feelings. Because what we do in that group setting, I'm going in and I'm creating dynamic hypnosis scripts using metaphors that the mind can recognize. Yes, you know, I did grow up being told I have to work hard for money, and I have all this evidence now that's not true. Let me take that old coat and put it in the donate pile and put on this beautiful new coat that feels expansive and abundant. But in a one-on-one session, we're going to be more dealing directly with the feelings that are driving the issue. It's a much more directed process. It works off of frequency, vibration, and emotional resonance. And a really well-trained hypnotist is going to see the emotions that a person is dealing with, and they're going to be able to meet someone where they are and to help them move to that place where they feel safe to allow change to happen. Because one thing you can't do is force, you can't force someone into something, because the moment that they feel unsafe, their brain's going to take them out of hypnosis. It's just the way that it works.
So interesting. What I love from what I'm hearing from you is that hypnosis can help with so many things. It can help with mindset, like, you know, maybe having money issues, problems, or relationship problems, and or like physical stuff where you have an illness or chronic pain that might be lingering for years. I heard a long time ago that sometimes a pain is not even really there. It's just a memory of the pain that keeps coming. I don't know if that's true, but
Pain is complicated, but
yeah,
yes, you know,
yeah.
if the mind recognized that someone being in discomfort helped them to avoid some unpleasant situation, then the mind will then recreate that pain so that an individual can avoid an unpleasant situation. It's called secondary gain. But one of the reasons hypnosis works so well is that, so I've been working outside, so I have a scratch on my arm. I didn't even feel that when it happened today. And it was messy when it happened. And the reason it didn't happen is because I was so focused on what I was doing. I was actually in a state of hypnosis. I was so absorbed in what I was doing. I was absorbed deeply enough that my mind blocked the pain. And I think just about everyone has had an experience like that. But the mind will take our mental and emotional experiences and it will create physical pain, because it's not always about the cut. It's about what our mind wants to get our attention for. Like, hey, you need to pay attention to this. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. What I like to tell people is not all pain is created out of emotion, but all pain has emotion attached to it because it causes us to think and feel a certain way. So there's always room for hypnosis to help, even if hypnosis can't remove or change or block the source of a physical pain when someone's having an in the moment physical issue. But this did today. I have many examples. Yeah.
So I love what you said about It's so I feel when I work on music, and I have been having a hard time with that, staying on it, but I know that when I'm really in it, that's hypnosis. When I'm really feeling, I've been working on this for like 4 hours and it felt like 10 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, it's
That
what?
flow
What?
state.
And I love being in that state. So how can people be more in that state?
So I think one of the things that I love to do is if we're in a state of overthinking, or there's just a lot going on, the first thing we want to do is break that state. So one of the easiest ways to break that state for me is to put on music, to sing out loud, to dance around, and it just lets my head get into a space. Now, flow state can be alpha, but our creative flow state is sometimes gamma. So this is the reason why when people say, oh, hypnosis is alpha state, not always true. The research says that sometimes it can be alpha and theta, and sometimes it's theta and gamma. I like to listen to binaural beats. And so you have to have headphones on or earbuds. And I love to listen to music that has gamma frequency. And it just really gets me in this state where I'm feeling creative and my thinking analytical mind is offline. So you could go alpha or you could go gamma. So gamma can also be associated with that inner absorption and that time distortion that you get there.
I was going to ask you, so when you obviously do hypnosis on people, but how do you do it when you do it for yourself? Because you want to also take care of you.
I do something very different for myself. So within the group that you're in, where I've done hypnosis, I've introduced a type of hypnosis that uses what's called a recognition, where I taught you all how to use those 4 words. And you guys who are listening, you're going to be missing a whole explanation. I'm going to make it super simple. I'm going to use the word delta, but each person who does this practice, they choose their own delta. And the only requirement is delta is much bigger than you. So I use that full practice of delta renews my life, where I say the recognition and I allow my subconscious mind to respond with that echo of the mind. And then I repeat delta renews my life, except the recognitions I use, they're part of an ascension process. They're very different. It's like the second level of 3 levels. And so that's what I will use to tune to frequency, to vibration. And when I'm done with that practice, I have what I call my spa, my subconscious programming area. And it's an imaginary room that I have created. And I walk in my mind, I walk down the stairs and into my room, and I make sure my thermostats for joy, gratitude, and prosperity are turned all the way up. I make myself a cocktail, whatever it is I want in my life. Visibility, great connections, more energy, more focus, 20/20 vision, because I wear glasses for reading, 20/20 vision. Like, I put whatever in my cocktail that I want, and then I drink it, because placebo is a thing, and hypnosis can be placebo on steroids for some people. And then I just do some other things to veg out in that space and to just be in that energy of joy and gratitude and appreciation.
Yeah, because it's important for you. When you give out so much energy, you have to kind of replenish yourself and recharge yourself.
Absolutely.
And also protect your energy, right? From
Yeah. Is your audience really energy minded?
Yes, I would say so. We're like rebels, risk takers, rule breakers.
So I don't think of it as protecting my energy. I set my intention that any energy that comes my way gets sent back with love and respect. Intention is the most powerful thing. Just set your mental intention, and you don't have to obsess about it being protection, because for some people, the word protection means there's something negative I have to be worried about. You see what I'm saying? It's just a little play on words. So I kind of split that hair, just because I never know who has that perception that protection means there's something negative. that could attach. So, I mean, I'm all about the visualization of the golden orb and, the threads and all of those things, but I just use my intention, and I walk barefoot in the grass. I do that between clients. I block enough time. I go outside, I walk barefoot, I sit in the sunshine, I breathe,
Yeah.
whatever it is that I need.
Grounding. Yeah. So, so powerful. What are some of the biggest success stories, or I don't even want to say story, breakthroughs that you've witnessed, like from someone who had came in with something and then it's almost like the magic wand. It's not a magic wand.
Yeah,
It's
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 not a
doing the
magic
work,
wand.
but
But when you have people who've been dealing something for their entire life, 3 to 8 weeks can seem like a very short period of time. So typically, people who reach out to me have had an ongoing pattern of something in their life, which means it's not going to be a 1 to 2 or 3 session thing that we're going to be working through. But I had one individual, testimonials on the website, had an entire lifetime of people pleasing, had been in over 10 years of individual and couples therapy, and came to me when they were just at their absolute wits' end. And we had talked a little bit, and they were a little unsure, and I connected them with someone else who was a pastor. I said, look, go talk to this person. They're open to it. You can ask them anything. I will not be offended. I mean, you can ask them if, I showed up standing on my head in my underwear. I don't care. I want you to feel safe
yeah,
working with me. That's all I care about. And if
yeah.
it's not a fit, it's not a fit. I have a list of people I can refer you to. So they came back for the second call. I have a few questions, but I'm going to work with you. I'm going to worry. I just have a couple of questions. So we kind of set it all out. And one of the things that she didn't share with me was that there was a lot happening in life at that moment other than what she was dealing with. And showed up on the first call, and she was just kind of really in a way. I said, okay, first thing I want you to breathe. And I said, this is something that's actively happening in your life. I'm telling you right now, it's going to take more than 8 weeks. But when I told you I could help with this, I told you I could help you with this. So we might end up going 10 weeks. I said, I don't want you to worry about that. We got to move you out of now to get you to there. And this is someone who literally had no idea who she was. She was being pulled in 3 different directions with her people pleasing. Everybody berated her. She was constantly trying to be someone for everybody else. And she had done that her entire life. And finally, after about 7 sessions, after we had done some forgiveness work, it clicked. I was seeing the change, but she wasn't seeing the change yet. And then she saw the change, and then everything, it was like we got on a speed train. And when we started, she was thinking about ending her relationship. Just basically blowing up her life was where she was at. And by the time we finished, she had such a deep inner perspective of what it took for her to get to where she was and what it took for her to heal. She said, you know what? He's got his own healing to do. I'm going to step back. I'm going to step back, and I'm going to give him a year. And I'm going to have the conversation with him. And she had very uncomfortable boundary conversations with everyone in her life. And she held them, and she's still holding them. Every so often I reach out to her, and she's still holding them, but it did not come overnight because she had to figure out who she was. And then she had to learn how to hold that. And that's the embodiment work that we do. And I have a podcast episode of another past client. She reached out. She said, I just don't feel like I'm being as open in my relationship as I could be. And she wants to break generational patterns. I mean, those of us who are aware, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And she never told me this was an issue. But after her 3rd session, I got a message from her, and she said, I walked into the other room, and my 3-year-old ran and jumped into my arms and hugged me as tight as he could and said, I love you, Mommy. He had never told her he loved her, and he was not a touchy-feely child. but her energy changed through that work. And he
Wow.
felt it. And he felt safe saying, I love you, mommy. So that's just an example of some of the things. I mean, sometimes I work with people on a shorter term than the 8 to 10 weeks, but a lot of people come to me because they're like, I'm just ready for the overhaul. And we
Yeah.
dive in and do it.
I feel it's so fascinating and powerful and also so insightful once you realize that we're energy. I've noticed myself like working with Kathy's group being really more aware of it because there's one thing knowing stuff and then one thing actually applying it. And I've been, you know what? Why am I so angry? Holding all these grudges when I know holding a grudge is hurting no one but me. The other person is having a blast. They don't even know about it. And here I am being angry about what? And so that helped so much. And I have felt in my own life that the minute I change my energy and I focus on me and I focus on all the things that bring me joy and happiness, things just happen. It's like, whoa, suddenly some people come up to you and say things to you that you're like, what? And then you almost feel like that is weird, but it's not because we changed our energy.
There's something that it's called desensitization.
Mm,
And I'm careful about how I say this because it's not the same thing as spiritually bypassing. So, spiritually bypassing is when we have something in the moment that needs our attention. And instead we go, well, I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful. And we just push it aside.
mm,
Desensitization, and this is a psychological term, it happens when, let's say, someone who is recording a podcast for the first time, just to, let's just say when you first started recording your podcast, you had nerves around it. So when you recognize that being seen is creating these nerves inside of you, you can immediately take yourself to a more pleasant memory and allow yourself to feel that love, that joy, that gratitude. So, what will happen is your brain will begin to associate the more positive feelings with being visible. Where people get into trouble is we get into all this negative self talk and we're reinforcing, oh my God, what are people going to think? And believe me, I've been there. I'm not saying that in condescension whatsoever, but it's our self talk. It's the words that we speak to ourselves that is creating so much frustration. So I've had a couple of experiences myself where if we're open to it, we're in the right mindset and we decide, we can choose instantaneous healing when those things happen.
mm.
And sometimes it comes with a lot of stuff. Sometimes it's pretty simple, but your example about being angry, if you're aware that something's making you angry and you're aware that I have no reason right now to be angry. What is causing me to feel this way? Like, this feeling doesn't belong here.
Mhm.
And you allow yourself to observe yourself feeling that anger. And you're like, okay, what do you want right now? What's causing you to feel angry? And then something will bubble up and you can be like, well, that's not true. Like, how come you feel like you need your husband to do the dishes to feel like he loves you or to feel like he sees you? And you can just follow that down the rabbit hole, because I had this conversation with a client this week. That happened to me 2 weeks ago,
Mm,
where there was some part of me that was like grotesquely offended over something so minuscule.
yeah.
And with that awareness, we can get underneath that and just tell our mind, like, this is not a big deal. And then once I kind of uncovered the belief that was underneath it all, because I know how to ask myself the right questions so that, I'm not putting automatic answers on the end of it. I sat down and I journaled out everything I was feeling until I journaled myself into the acceptance of the knowing that I don't need someone else to be seen, to be validated, and to know that I'm worthy. That's just a part of our ego that's attached to love looking like a specific thing, or a relationship, or a job, or money. Fill in the blank with anything.
Oh my God, you're like speaking to me right now because I've been noticing. patterns in my previous relationships and my relationship right now where I noticed that and I'm working on that. I'm like, I don't beg, I don't chase because it doesn't feel good. And also, and maybe it's because I'm an only child, could be that I've always wanted the attention and I felt abandoned as a kid. So there's all these things that when you get, and I love what you said about journaling, because I think that asking the right questions and giving yourself permission to really dive a little bit deeper and really spend time on you, instead of just brushing it off or saying, you didn't do the dishes and now, you don't love me, you don't care about me, blah, blah, blah. And then it can just so easily just spiral into this big fight over dishes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't necessarily see, and I think that depends on where we are, right? I
True.
don't spiral into the fight anymore. I immediately go inside and looking for the cause of the trigger because I've done enough work that I
Yeah.
recognize it's not valid. So everybody's at a different place. And that's what I was explaining to this client because they were being extremely hard on themselves,
Yeah.
that they've started to develop awareness, but they reverted back. I said, it's taken me years to get here. I said, you are growing. You caught yourself. Congratulate yourself that you recognize that you had slipped into the old way of thinking and just say, you know what? You've been doing good. Let's take our attention back over here. I said, and have grace with yourself and just recognize this because I'm not perfect. I mean, the other day I had snot and tears and I wasn't sitting in it, wallowing in it, but I was talking to myself through it and letting myself process what was coming up underneath the surface. And every time my mind would go into, pity mode, I was like, no, 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 this is not true. This is not true. What is so important about holding on to this? Finally I worked it through, but gosh, isn't it interesting how we can get caught up depending on our relationship with our parents and other people? We really get indoctrinated into what love looks like and what we're taught that love should look like. Whereas where I am now, if you love yourself, if you truly love yourself and you accept yourself mistakes at all and you have compassion with yourself, everything else will fall away. It doesn't mean you won't ever have a bad feeling, but all of that other stuff will fall away. And so even though my clients may not have that specifically as a goal, I know that by taking them on this journey of their identity, I'm going to help them go back home to who they are. And once they're in that place of knowing who they are, everything else begins to shift.
I love this. It's so fascinating. And awareness is the key. And I love that you said, you're human. You're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. We all have feelings and sometimes things just come back. Because I think that's why as us humans, we constantly have to work on ourselves because we are creatures of habit, and certain habits will try to make their way back, whether that's a bad habit of getting angry over little things or annoyed over little things. It's just fascinating to me how we operate, but then also how when we are aware of it and we know that we have the tools and we know the tools to be able to go, okay, let's get in my toolbox and just make sure that I'm working on that. Doesn't mean perfection, but it means at least getting out of that state,
I think too, we can work through something. And as we continue to increase our level of awareness, when the feelings come back up, we can mistakenly think we've done something wrong. I've even heard people say, oh my God, I took 10 steps back. No, you didn't. And they'll be like, I'm back at the beginning. No, you're not. Because you're not the same person that dealt with it the first time. And all it is there's a different lesson for you here now that you weren't ready to receive the first time. Mm-hmm. So I look at things that have happened in my life, even if I did not like them and would never want to repeat them. I look at how I grow out of them, the growth. I look at the growth as the blessing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tell me the story about the manifesting the owl behind you, because I have the owl tattooed here on my arm, so I love owls.
So that is the second owl that I've manifested, and both have similar stories. where I saw the painting. This one was on exhibit at the local county fair. It's they have the art exhibit. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, and my husband was with me, he goes, what? I'm like, I love the owl. I've got to have the owl. And then it had a little tag on it next to the blue ribbon that said not for sale. I was like, oh, it's not for sale. So I'm walking away and I see him taking a picture. And, I just thought, whatever. That was in July. And when Christmas came around last year, there's like this big production from him. I'm like, what is going on? He goes, you just have to sit there, like blindfold the whole 9 yards. And he goes outside. I'm like, what is he going to get outside? And he had it hidden away somewhere that I wouldn't look. And he brought it in and had me uncover it. He had found the artist. She wasn't willing to sell it, but come to find out, he knew her cousin. So he talked to her cousin. They worked together or something over at the hospital. He goes, you don't understand. Penny has to have this owl. She instantly knew it was hers. She has a thing for it. And so the two of them basically let the artist know that it's something that it's divinely guided to be in my life. So she sold it to him. So basically what happened was I saw it. I said it was mine. The same thing happened with the first painting. I said it was mine. Then I saw it wasn't available and I let it go. I never thought about it again. Most of us, when we're not getting our manifestations, it's because we're obsessing over it. Where is it? My bank account's still only $75. Where's my manifestation? And we keep looking for evidence that the manifestation is coming. And what we're doing is we're feeding our brain evidence that it's not there yet. The easiest way to manifest is to set your intention and then just let it go. That's how I came to be in Kathy's group. I was doing a manifestation workshop, 3-part workshop, and my word came to me for the year for visibility. And I said, you know what? I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm going to be a lot more visible this year. And I just let it go. And before that week was done, I had an invitation from her to come into her group for her retreat in March. And then my mentor was looking for past alumni from his coaching program to come on to his podcast. And he's had millions of downloads. And I got to be interviewed on his podcast.
That is so amazing. I love that. That's so magical.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that about manifestation, because I think, yes, something I'm also still learning, because I've watched The Secret and Law of Attraction. I've studied that. And there's one thing, we know a lot of things, and people always say, well, I've heard this a gazillion times, but then have you manifested what you want? And if not, then maybe you haven't quite put it into practice yet or understood it yet, because sometimes it takes us a minute to understand that. And I know you do all the work for manifesting stuff, for anything. So that's the power of hypnosis, which I so love. Wow. I could talk to you for another 3 hours.
Maybe we can do another episode sometime and we can talk specifically about manifesting, because I've got specific books that I like and just different examples that we could talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh God, I love that. I love that so much. Tell me, what is some of your favorite beverages when you get up in the morning? What do you like to do? What is your ritual? Or do you have a ritual? Maybe you don't.
Well, with my little ADHD brain, it's not much of a ritual, but I do love my morning cappuccino. I make my cappuccino. It's a double shot. And, if I stop myself and I don't jump headlong into my day, I like to go out by the pool, winter, spring, summer, sit with my cappuccino, sit with my journal, and just take in the glory that is this beautiful earth that we live on, because that is the epitome of abundance.
Oh God, yes. I'm by the Great Lakes and it's been raining, and it's funny, I'm like a little kid. I'm like, it's raining. And then the sun peeks out. I'm like, where is it? It's like almost like Christmas. And we had these giant, so one little rainbow came and then it rained more and then the sun came out again. I'm like, there might be another one. and it was a double rainbow. And it
Nice.
was crazy how it actually was reflecting in the lake, and I thought to myself, I'm like, yes, we want $1 million. We want the career. We want the perfect whatever. But that is just there's something so fulfilling, gratifying, beautiful in witnessing that is
Yeah.
just,
That is the epitome of abundance.
yeah,
Walk in that feeling all the time.
yeah. I was just like, oh my God. And I was just standing there filming. My boyfriend is like, went inside. I'm like, how could you go inside? It's still here. Check it
I'm
out.
excited for you, and I didn't even see it.
It was just so beautiful and magical at the same time. And it's funny, somebody could say, well, it's physics, but I'm like, no, it's magic. This is absolutely magic. Um, I always ask my guests, what is one of your pet peeves in life in general? That is, and I always love the reaction. Everybody's like, what?
The pet peeve. Oh, I have to be careful about this one because it could come across. And now I know that because of my ADHD, I see patterns where other people don't. But one of the things is when people see something and they just jump into assumptions, and they don't pause for a moment to just think it through. And the way I would have phrased that before is people just not using their common sense. But now I know it's just people just need to pause and take a beat and think something through before they reply. So yeah, I think that would be my
Yeah.
pet peeve.
Come to think of it, I wish, in this current state we live in, I mean, we've been living in this current state for like a few years now where we've been so divided and people are fighting. And it's funny because I feel in real life, that's not real life. In real life, we actually get along. Everything is actually, there's no drama, there's no crisis. But online, there's just so much politics, religion, whatever. If we could just do like hypnosis on the world and have everyone just sit down, shut your TV off, your news off. What do you actually want? How do you actually want to feel? And what do you really feel? And what do you really believe? Because I think TV news is hypnosis in a way, isn't it? Because they
Oh, it,
keep
it is. It's
repeating.
called TV programming for a reason.
Exactly.
And when I first became a hypnotist, I think it's 2014, I was at convention in Massachusetts and I was all excited. I was networking and I met this young man and I was like, hi, I'm Penny. I practice in Connecticut. Where's your hypnosis practice? And he's like, oh, I don't practice hypnosis. I come here to learn about hypnosis and NLP because I'm a political strategist and I help, create messaging. And I was like, oh, I never thought about it. And I stopped listening to news and talk radio a long time ago. I will still listen to it now sometimes because we need to be aware of what's going on in the
Mm-hmm.
world. But I only do it when I have the ability to look at it thinking critically as if I was a teacher grading a paper.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you getting your information from? Who is actually your sources? And if there's a bunch of vague anonymous source and this and that and the other, I scroll right past it. But social media really amplifies it because these algorithms, when someone watches something, it's going to give them more of what caused them to stop and watch.
Mm-hmm.
So it creates confirmation bias within their mind, and it just stokes those emotions. And when you're scrolling, you're going into hypnosis. There's no mistake about how it's created. And people could debate till the cows come home if it's nefarious or not. My point is that people just get into that state of focused attention and they don't even realize that what they're listening to is literally rewiring their brains.
It's addictive because for a while I was doing some going down rabbit holes, with certain things that were going on in the news, and I was just like doing my research, whatever, my research, but I was like watching videos, and I realized every time I go on YouTube, all these videos keep popping up, and everybody has these big, strong headlines, that just make you want, and then you watch the video and you're like, why am I watching this? They're not really saying anything. And why am I wasting my time? What is so important for me to know that? Because is this really changing me, my life? No. Do I really know the truth? No. So it's right. Wouldn't you agree that it's so much more
Yeah.
important
Well,
to
it
focus on
happens in
you?
marketing too. They create that open loop in the brain, that open survival loop where you feel like you need the next piece of information to close the loop. And there's marketing courses that literally teach you how to capitalize on the dopamine hit to get people to binge your content so that they get to know you quickly and they can decide whether or not to buy.
Makes sense. It's
So
the same
it's
with
not
TV
just
shows.
politics, it's
Yeah,
it's
even TV
marketing
shows.
as
It's
well.
like, oh my God, I can't wait for the next episode. And they always leave you hanging.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the easiest thing for people to do is if you realize that something news related is making you emotional, change the channel. Change the channel, walk away, only watch or read when you're in that critical thinking state of mind and you're not hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And if you're going to buy things, ever found that you got into a situation where you bought things and later you've got that buyer's regret, give yourself a timeout before you pull the trigger on buying something.
Yes. Yes.
You have control. It's not as if we don't have a choice to say no to these things. Now, is that choice always easy? No.
I like what you said about buying things because I'm more of a minimalist. I live in an RV and I go shopping that often. I don't even, in the area I live in, they don't have that many stores. But when I do go, I catch myself thinking, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I'm like, no, you can have that. You can have that. You have no room for this. And why do you want it? And even clothes for me now, it's like, if I think about it, it's not it. Because if it would hit me right away, I would try it on. If it fits it amazingly well, then I'd be like, yeah, no brainer. Yeah, hell yeah. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's a hell no. I love that so much. So really, every day in our lives, we kind of are confronted with hypnosis in a way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all the time. So it's really powerful to take your power back and focus on you. Let's close it off with you already kind of said it. Is there any last pieces of advice that you would give someone to really take more control? Because I feel when I hear you talk and also the sessions I've done with you, I felt really grounded and also more in control. I was like, oh, I am in control of my emotions, of my body, of my health.
I think that the first thing is to just develop awareness. Awareness is what gives you the power of choice. That choice may not always be perfect, but have compassion with yourself because it's like building a muscle. If I wanted to have an 8-pack of abs by Christmas, that's not going to happen. But I could be eating healthier and I could be more fit and more energetic by Christmas. I could, definitely, there's plenty of time I could definitely be slimmer. First of all, don't expect yourself to be perfect from the outset. Have compassion for yourself and know that just like building that 8-pack, you've got to put in the reps.
Mm-hmm.
It's a muscle that you build, that awareness and choosing, because so many of us get so caught up in our checklist of our things we have to do every day. We lose that presence. We lose that connection to the double rainbows on the lake. I mean, that was a priceless, precious moment.
Oh, yeah.
But if we stay out of the noise of our checklist and the doing, and we can be in our being, we can carry that feeling with us even when we're walking through a storm. It just takes practice.
Oh, I love that. And now that you say it, I just remembered it was the new moon, and I meant to write down my intentions because it said by the new moon is the perfect time to plant seeds, what you want to manifest. And I kept wanting to do that, but in the morning I said, today is going to be a day full of miracles and magic. And then that happened. I was like, That's it. That's it. I love that so much. If people want to work with you, how can they reach out to you? You also have a podcast. How can we find you on social media platforms? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so Instagram is probably where I hang out more these days. I really don't like being on social media a whole lot. It's at penny.chaisson. Chi ass on is how you spell it. Thank you, Dr. Ring for giving me that idea. The website is pennychaisson.com, and you can find a link to the Soul Fusion podcast right there on the website.
Awesome. Well, amazing. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show. And I think next time I want to have you on again because I also want to talk about just you as a person, what your interests are besides hypnosis, because, there's more to you than hypnosis. I know that. And I'm sure many people just see you as that, but I know there's so much more. Your mom, your wife, talk about that more, but I want to be respectful of your time. So we'll talk more next time, but I appreciate you so much and have an amazing rest of your, what is today? Well, great week. And I wish you the best.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciated chatting, and I just love the lights. They're just so girly and light. And it's like we were at our own little party today between the owl and your lights. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you so much for being a guest. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode with my special guest, Penny. To reach out to her, all the links are in the description below, as well as all the show notes and some highlights of what we've talked about in our conversation. Your time is so valuable, and I appreciate you for being here. Make sure that you subscribe, like, and share this with someone who could really benefit from this, who might be interested in this. And I will see you in the next one. Also, if you would like to work with me personally, check out pinkstarmusic.com, and I will see you in the next one. Have an amazing rest of your weekend. Make every day a great day, and always, always follow your bliss. Take care.
Speak, break the silence, pray for the broken. Hold the calling, echoing, echoing from within. Free yourself. Rise from the ashes, we shall rise again. Every